See, now the idea for this presentation is I receive hundreds of emails every year, and I meet so many people here. And the most common question that I get these days is people who are trying to enter into the world of finance, or people who are trying to build up their profile and trying to get some certification. Everyone wants to decide whether they should be going for CFA or FRM. Now I think it's an important decision because a lot of people end up choosing one course over another for wrong reason. So for example, I recently met or came across someone. This gentleman chose FRM only because he thought he could finish that in 6 months period. But FRM was totally irrelevant for his profile. So I thought I'll record this video, and then it will be useful for people who are trying to decide between the two. So what I would be discussing primarily today is these variables. First, we will have a very large level helicopter view discussion on who is this course for, as in what kind of people should go for FRM, what kind of people should go for CFA, maybe what kind of people should explore possibility of doing both of them, and what kind of people should not do either of them. So that's what we will discuss here. Then we will go on to certain course details. So we'll look at eligibility criteria as exams, subjects and other stuff. Then we would look at one sample question from both the courses, so that you get a perspective on what kind of exams are going to be. And then finally we'll have discussion that you guys are mostly interested in. That is how much money I'm going to make after the course. And then if there is a consulting opportunity, can I set up my own practice and get into the sphere. So I'm starting with who is this for. So what do you think? What kind of people should be doing CFA work? What do you become after you're a CFA? Or you have no idea? So here is what I think of them. CFA is a very generic finance course. Okay, so when I say generic finance course, what I mean is CFA more or less covers almost every aspect of finance, whereas FRM is an extremely niche risk management course. So a lot of people feel that I want to build a career in finance and therefore I want to do something, they end up getting into FRM. I don't think that's a very smart thing to do. So then who is it for? So those people who want to build their careers into, let's say, banking industry, because that's where risk management has a lot of demand, or those people who want to build their careers into, let us say, credit risk. Okay, so I'm going to explain you what each of these things means. Or someone who wants to get into market risk, or those people who want to get into areas like quant trading. For them, maybe FRM is an excellent choice and a good certification. But if you want to be a generalist, or if you want to, let's say, become an equity research analyst, or you want to become an investment banker, you want to advise on mergers and acquisitions, you want to work in private equity industry, you want to work in corporate finance, then CFA is going to be a good course. So the way to look at this is, the way I think of this, if this is CFA, this entire pie, then I would say that this is FRM. Okay, and what I'm trying to say is that even CFA covers certain areas of risk management. But CFA is not only a risk management course, CFA covers a lot of other areas. FRM is dedicated risk management. So this is the common part. Okay, and later on I'm going to discuss which areas are common. But there are a lot of areas in FRM which are not covered in CFA. Most prominent of those areas is banking regulations and the operations part. Okay, so again, if you're someone who wants to build career in banking space, if you're working in IT and you're supporting banking clients, if you want to know all the operational part of it, then FRM is going to be a good choice, because you would get to do this part here, which I'm showing in green. But if you're someone who's not sure, you're not sure in terms of what I would like to do, because you're someone who's just exploring, you want to keep your options open, you're someone who's saying I wouldn't mind getting into equity research, or maybe I don't even mind exploring risk management because I'm very early in my career stage at this moment, then a smarter thing for you is to go for CFA, because by doing that you're keeping your career options open. Now, do you want to ask any questions here? Okay, fair enough. So I'm taking you to the next part of it now. So these are some operational details. Eligibility. You might have heard of this before. For CFA, the eligibility is you have to be in the final year of graduation, or you should have finished your graduation. Whether it's a 3-year graduation or 4-year graduation, it doesn't matter. For example, in India, a lot of graduations are of 3-year. So it doesn't matter if you're in the final year of graduation, you're eligible to take level 1 examination, or you have 4 years of professional work experience. Now, what I've observed is a lot of students in India, especially in the eastern part of the country, they are taking up CFA level 1 exam in the first year of graduation. Okay, and how are they doing that? By showing that I have already worked for 4 years, which they have not. So my suggestion here is that play by the rules. There are reasons why we have eligibility criteria. So if you fit into any of these categories, excellent. If not, then wait, finish either of the two and then enroll for the program. The good news with FRM is it does not require any prerequisite, which means even if you are just in the school and you think you're smart enough to pass FRM exam, there is no restriction. You can enroll for the exam and have have the time of your life. Generally, people who are taking FRM exams are working professionals. So I have not seen students taking FRM exams. However, this year I got to know one of the student who was just in the first year of graduation bought our online course, and then he called me after the results saying, Utkarsh, I passed. Now how do I go about FRM part 2? And I said, I was totally shocked because this guy was just in the first year of graduation. So generally, I don't recommend doing that. Okay, so even though they do not say that there is any eligibility criteria, I recommend people to wait till graduation to get into the course. Only exception is if you are someone who's really good at quant and maths. So whatever you have studied in the past, you feel you're very confident with these two skills, then maybe you can think of FRM earlier. Exam details, there are 3 levels in CFA, level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 and level 2 are purely MCQ exams. They'll give you a question, 3 options, you have to choose one of the 3. Level 1, there are 240 questions, 120 in the morning, 120 in the afternoon. So 9 to 12 in the morning, 2 to 5 in the afternoon. If you want to know more about this, then there's a separate video about CFA exams per se. You can have a look at that. Level 3 CFA, in the morning we have to write something called as essays, or they call them as vignettes. It's not an essay that we wrote in the school. You would be presented with a case study and then you have to write a very concise solution to the problem. Level 3 afternoon is again MCQ in the form of a case study. FRM part 1 100 multiple choice questions, part 2 80 multiple choice questions. These days I have heard they also include certain case studies in part 2. So there would be one case study followed by 3-4 questions, but all of these are going to be multiple choice questions. When can you take the exam? So level 1 you can take either in June or December. So you have 2 windows, you can choose either of the 2. But level 2 and level 3 you have to take only in the month of June. FRM part 1, you have 2 windows in a year for both the exams, part 1 and part 2, either May or November. You're also allowed to take the exam on the same day. So if you think you're very smart, you can handle both the syllabus together. So then you can decide to write both the exams on a single day. Your timing would be morning 8 to 12 and I think 2 to 6. You get a 2-hour interval in between. But the trick here is that if you do not pass part 1 exams, then your part 2 paper is not evaluated. Which means a scenario where you performed really well in part 2, but part 1 wasn't good, you would not get your results because part 2 would not be evaluated. Generally, I suggest people taking one exam at a time. So which means you're looking at an interval of about 1 year here, and this would take you approximately 2 to 3 years depending on how quickly you pass and depending on when you start the course. However, this should not be the only criteria to take decision. A lot of people decide to go for FRM because it's a 1-year course. The thing that we need to appreciate here is that if you pass level 1 exams of CFA, that itself is a certification, right? So your decision of which one to choose should be dependent on which areas you want to take your career interest forward. Then time duration, yeah, 18 to 24 months, this is 12 months. Passing rates, these are the most recent passing rates. So on an average, you can see them in, this is in early 40s and this is in late 40s and 50s. FRM pass 1, passing rates are more or less in the same range, so that doesn't have a significant difference. Now we'll look at subjects covered here. By the way, do you want to ask any questions on this? Okay. Subjects covered. These are your subjects in CFA. Ethics, quantitative standards. Again, one common question I receive: do I need to be good at maths for these exams? So my general answer is for FRM, yes. You need to have reasonable math skills. You don't have to be expert in calculus, but your thought process with non-linear data should be good. You should be able to visualize non-linear data. You should be able to understand arithmetic progression, geometric progression, stuff like that. CFA, it's okay. You don't have to be great with maths. If you're reasonably alright with arithmetic, you can pull off the program. Economics, FRA, corporate finance, equity, fixed income derivative, these are your assets, alternative, and then portfolio management. FRM part 1, we have foundations of risk management, which is more or less theory. Quant, towards the end, it gets a little heavy with time series. Financial markets and products, which is more or less derivative and bond markets, and then valuation and risk model. So part 1 has a reasonable 50-50 composition of theory and numericals. Part 2 is very heavily theory oriented. It has all the banking regulations and theory on risk management. So market risk, credit risk, operational risk, then investment management, and then current issues in financial market. These are the subjects. Okay, one more question that I get again very often. Is there a common part between CFA and FRM? Okay, can we do them together? So generally, I recommend people, if they have to write it together, then CFA level 2 and FRM part 1 has a very significant synergy between the two. So then in case if you are planning to write them together, one way of doing it is you can take FRM part 1 right before you've taken CFA level 2 or after you've taken level 2. I mean 5 months before level 2 or 5 months after level 2. The benefit of doing this is you get benefit on derivatives, fixed income, and certain part of portfolio management, which is repeated very heavily in financial markets, some part in valuation, and a big part of quantitative analysis. So CFA level 2 and FRM part 1 has a lot of areas in common. Then fees. So both the exams, they have a one-time registration fee and then they have the exam fee. FRM, your registration is valid only for 4 years. Whereas CFA, you have lifetime validity, which means you register now and you decide to take CFA level 1 exam in 2050. You can still do that without paying the registration fee again, but that doesn't apply to FRM exams. So on an average, you're looking at a fee of about 950 here. Let's take the middle one, and 450 here. So we are looking at about 1400 too. So we are looking at a total fee of about 1400 US dollar in the middle interval. This is for level 1, and then more or less another $800 for level 2. These are approximate number, and $800 for level 3. That's your total cost. FRM 475 and 400, so we are looking at 875 for part 1, and then additional let's say approximately 400 for part 2. So this is your total cost for FRM program. So from a cost perspective, FRM cost is substantially lower than the CFA exams. And then we'll look at some sample questions here. So let me pull out some questions from FinTree portal. Alright, so we have two sample questions, one from CFA and one from FRM. I'm picking them up from the FinTree Learning Management. The idea of this question is just to give you a perspective on what kind of questions are tested on the exam. So this is the MCQ question. It says we have financial statement. We have to calculate something called as an operating cycle. What we've been given is we've been given credit sales, the cost of the goods and inventory, and so this is a corporate finance question. So if you've done MBA finance or if you've taken any basic course on finance, then you should be more or less familiar with this. Then we have one question on FRM here. It's not a MCQ question, but you would get a sense of what kind of questions are tested on the exam. So standard deviation of monthly changes in the spot price of some cattle, live cattle is 1.6. Standard deviation of changes in future price of the cattle is 1.7. Correlation is given. A beef producer is committed to purchasing this quantity on November 15th. He wants to use December live cattle to hedge his risk. Each contract is for 40,000 pounds. What strategy should beef producer follow? Right, so it's a hedging question. So you've been given a situation and you've been asked to decide how to build hedging strategy around it. It's a derivative based question. So more or less these are the type of questions you're looking at on the exam. Okay, that's the difference. In terms of level of difficulty, I feel that FRM exams or FRM syllabus in general is more difficult because it is highly quantitative, and the questions on the exam are very application based. So the general feedback of the candidates who've taken both the exams, they find FRM exams much more difficult than CFA. If I have to compare between the levels, maybe I would say CFA level 2 level of difficulty is a little bit closer to FRM part 1. Okay, but this is subjective, but that's more or less the comparison that we are looking at. And then finally, career opportunities and pay scales. So now this is a subjective area. If you just do a Google search, if you just do an internet search, and if you browse through a few websites, you would realize more or less the pay is same. There isn't a drastic difference between what pays are being given to CFA charter holders or FRM charter holders. So my suggestion is the decision making should not be done based on how much pay you would be getting. Of course, that's an important criteria, but the decision making process should be based on number one, is there a synergy between what you have done in the past and the certification that you're planning to do, and what are your career plans in future, and second, your areas of interest. Okay, so just to help you build your mind, let's say you're someone who wants to be an investment banker. Okay, maybe you want to work in M&A deals. Then for you, CFA is a smarter choice, because then it will give you in-depth analysis of idea of financial modeling, equity valuation, stuff like that. If you're someone who wants to be an equity research analyst, then again CFA is a better choice, because FRM has absolutely no coverage on equity markets per se. But if you are very focused and you want to build a career, let's say in banking space, especially in credit, or you want to be in treasury of banking, then for you FRM is a smarter choice. If you want to work in risk management, either of the risk, credit risk, operational risk, market risk, of course FRM is a smarter choice. So there could be multiple scenarios, and that needs to be assessed based on what are your areas of interest, and of course what are your career plans. Are we good? Okay, thank you very much. See you in the respective classes now.